Welcome everybody. Thank you for coming along. Another Dementia Knowledge Network meeting. Today our topic is preventative and wayfinding support and strategies, and other practical strategies and things for the physical and built environment. So first up, I would like to respectfully acknowledge the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, who are the traditional owners of the land on which we meet, and pay our respect to their elders past, present and emerging. And I might throw to Sarah to do a brief little intro.
Thanks very much, Elizabeth. So in previous sessions, we've talked briefly about supporting a person with a diagnosis of dementia with memory aids such as clocks, post-it notes. But today we'll look at some preemptive changes we can make to the environment to support a person living with dementia to be as independent as possible.
Yeah, and we might continue on with our question and answer format. So if I can ask you, Sarah, where do I start? If I'm a person who has just received a diagnosis of dementia, or I'm caring for a person with a recent diagnosis, where do I start? Where do I go?
What a great question, Elizabeth. The best place to start is the place you spend the most time. And for most of us, it's our homes. And in the home, probably the kitchen and the living areas. When we were looking at resources for this session, we found the Alzheimer's WA Dementia Enabling Environments website, which has a fantastic step-by-step practical tips to make small changes to your home that could make a big difference to a person living with dementia. So Elizabeth shared on screen a living room. And it has some clickable areas. So I don't mind where you click, Elizabeth. On the light.
Yes.
And it gives you tips there. It says people with dementia require greater than average light levels. Check that your house is sufficiently and evenly lit. And it also tells you what principle of dementia enabling environments lighting fits into. So what are we clicking on there? Is that the coffee table?
So I think it's the floor. So to have
yes, I see.
Space. Yep.
Making sure that you have ample circulation space, no rugs to trip over, no cords, no clutter, so that people can walk freely from space to space, from room to room. It also mentions there that the flooring is of a contrasting colour to the furniture.
Yeah, and it's great to have all of these tips, Sarah, but it is a lot of information. So where do I start? How do I sort of access this initially?
So it really depends on what challenges are being faced. For example, a person is getting lost on the way to the bathroom or the toilet. Perhaps a large sign in plain lettering on each door would help. If there are areas that a person with dementia should not enter, try printing out a no entry sign for that door. Before we look at some others, we might just have a look at this kitchen. What happens if we click on the oven? So it has a safety mechanism that allows it to be cool when touched to prevent burns. So providing an opportunity for domestic activities like making a cup of tea independently, having things set out. And strip lighting, again, for better lighting, for recognition of objects and how to use them. And lights and window treatments, again, to reduce shadows.
Okay, so I'll jump out of there for a moment. Right.
I know that, Elizabeth, a common challenge that some people face, and I think we both hear this from carers, is wayfinding at night when all the lights are off. Common solutions include sensor lights that turn on when they sense movement, or one innovative carer that I've spoken to strung battery-powered fairy lights along the floor leading to the bathroom. Very easy to follow at night, but not disturbing.
Yeah, great. And so I've heard about things like the dementia clock and other visual aids. Can you tell me a little bit more about those?
Yeah, of course. There are so many products on the market and more every day. Some of them you can make yourself. And there we go. The first one there is a GPS watch. Some of them are as simple as just giving you a ping on a screen. Others will tell you where the person is, where they've been, mark them on a particular map in an app. And you can get them as keychains, watches, neck pendants, all sorts, depending on what the person would wear. And they also preserve a person's dignity because they do look like a watch. Rodney, have you got your hand up?
I have. Just a question. Do colours, like colouring a door, help? And if so, are there specific colours associated with dementia that work better than others?
So 2 questions there. It is recommended that areas or doors that are accessible, that you outline doorways in a darker or contrasting colour to the surrounding walls so that people can easily identify doorways. There are colours that work better than others, but it depends on the purpose of the room. If you want an activity room to be bright and engaging, you would use yellows and oranges. They say yellows are great for stimulating appetite. If it was a bedroom or a quiet area, you would use more muted tones. I know when Caledonia was actually built, they did quite a bit of research into colours, but that research is now sort of 20 years old. And there were lavenders, mushrooms and plum colours used extensively throughout the building because at the time, that was what was recommended.
And I think...
Sorry, would you colour, like, let's say a toilet door, bathroom door, would you colour that maybe a different colour to the rest of the house as a whole to sort of, for that person to know that maybe that's the bathroom or toilet or recognise it?
It really depends on the person and the challenges that they're facing. There are different things, obviously, that work for different people. I know that some residential facilities are using different colours on different doors so that people recognise that perhaps their room is blue. It's an extra visual cue. I think a sign on the door is just as useful because if you, for instance, paint the door red, the person has to remember that red means it's the toilet door if it hasn't got a sign on it as well. It depends what the person's challenges are and what they respond to best.
And if I could just add something as well, Sarah, I think that is I'll just sort of reiterate that point, I guess. It's knowing the person. And if we're talking about somebody living at home, it's knowing the environment as well and what's practical and reasonable for the people living there. So contrast is the main focus in all of the literature. So it could be as simple as putting some tape around a light switch that's a different colour to the wall so that somebody can clearly identify that there's a box there and there's something in it that is important and, that's a wayfinding tool. So I guess the signage and the appropriateness of colours is a big focus as long as there is some contrast so the person can find their way around. Yeah. Sorry, I was just going to ask if you wanted to speak a little bit about the signage more broadly, or did you want me to go back to the previous slide?
No, this one's good.
Great.
Oh, actually, can you go back to the previous slide?
Absolutely.
There were just a couple of things there. So some of the aids and memory aids and tools you can use are as simple as a whiteboard with a note on it saying, I'll be home soon, we've got a 2:00 doctor's appointment. Or I think the most expensive thing I found was that pill dispenser, which you can set to dispense pills up to 3 times a day. I think it goes for 2 weeks and also makes a noise when pills are ready to be taken. So that was $300 and something. The dementia enabling clocks, so they tell the time as well as the day. And I particularly like this one because it says it's morning. It doesn't just say AM. And yeah, we talked about the whiteboard. Thanks, Elizabeth.
Okay. And so I guess we've talked a little bit about the signage, but I think signage can be really helpful for a lot of people, Sarah. Is it appropriate for everybody living with dementia?
I certainly wouldn't rush out and put a label on everything if my husband was diagnosed today. It really depends, again, on knowing your person. You want to enable them to live independently and not presume from day one that they need every label on every object. It's all about preserving people's dignity as well as encouraging their independence. And what works for one person is not going to work for another. Those coloured room stickers, for instance, may look childish to somebody. Somebody may prefer just the word kitchen without the coloured pictures on them. The one in the middle, unfortunately, the circle cut it off a bit, but it says, "Do not leave the room without your walker." That may be a great prompt for one person, and it may just annoy somebody else. I know we've struggled with people with dementia when we've been allowed to run our programs with wearing masks. People can't understand us, often don't recognise us, and we've made some dispensations in our policies when we're working face-to-face with people. But we've also had enormous badges made with our faces on so that people know that who they are talking to when we are wearing a mask. So they're big, they're this big, just with a face on them. And all the staff will wear those when we're back together.
Excellent. Okay, well, that's provided some really good, I guess, basic information about the physical environment. But where else can I go for some information or some links?
So if you want to click along, there are a couple of websites there, and I'm happy to send these websites out to people if they're interested. So leaf.com provide heaps and heaps of, they've got a shop full of things that will assist people to live more independently at home, as well as an entire section on more activities for people living with dementia, activities and therapy. So they have the electronic cats and dogs, they have some beautiful music and rhythm type objects for people in late stage dementia, as well as puzzles and games that are age appropriate and look appropriate. The independent living centres are scattered throughout Australia, and they also have walking aids, eating aids. They're not specific to people with dementia, they're for anybody who needs any assistance with independence, but they've got a great range of products as well. Dementia Australia has some fantastic help sheets, some great links, and also the helpline there that you can ring if you're ever stuck. The website with that house and all the clickable areas is the enablingenvironments.com.au website, and that's hosted by Alzheimer's WA. And I have put Caledonia's link there as well. If you've got any questions, you can just shoot to the website and shoot your question through, or ask for these links and I'll send them through.
Great. Thank you very much. Well, that's provided a really good summary, I think. Should we open it up to questions now? Does anybody have any questions on what we've covered there?
I've got one, Elizabeth.
Yes.
Let's say I'm the carer. The person that I'm caring for has a persistent worry. As an example, they're wanting to go home despite already being home. Any suggestions on what I could try or what might help?
Yeah, that's a good question too. I've got a couple of suggestions that spring to mind. I know a lot of people living with dementia can have really persistent sort of, whether it's an intrusive thought or worry or concern that does just cycle round and around, and there's a lot of repetitive questioning or vocalization around, you know, wanting to go home or worrying about money. Or whatever it happens to be. And a lot of people have put up, whether it's a large font sign if the person is reading, or a whiteboard, as Sarah mentioned, in a prominent area around the house, say in the kitchen or on the fridge, with a reassuring statement. So it could be as simple as, you're at home, or this is your home, or you don't owe anybody any money. There are a lot of statements that it sounds very simple, but I think it can actually be very effective for some people who can just become really anxious and get caught up on one particular idea that may not in fact be what they think it is. So hopefully that helps.
Yes, thank you. I've got a second one if no one else has a question as well. This one's for Sarah. With your presentation earlier, it had the clock up and things like that. You mentioned jewelry that people could wear, or a watch, or even key rings. Do you find that something that the person can wear is better than something that they could then put down or lose, like key rings?
Yes, absolutely. It really, again, depends on knowing the person. It might be a person who has always taken their handbag everywhere, or it could be a person who is constantly misplacing glasses, wallets. It might be a person who's never worn jewelry, so the watch might be preferred, or somebody who's used to wearing a pendant and wouldn't mind wearing something around their neck. Just something I learned recently, which has got very little to do with this, is if your person is wearing a medic alert necklace, they often hang it on the bathroom door when they go in the shower, and it is recommended that you put it on the bath mat, because when you fall, you can't reach the back of the bathroom door. Just a little hint. Pass on to people.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Thank you. I promise that's it. No more questions from me.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Brett. Does anybody else have any questions on that? Okay, well, I guess some key points then, and what I've learned today. So people can remain independent with some imaginative, visual and practical prompts. And prompts can be really simple. So post-it notes or reassuring statements, or they can be more involved and complicated, such as the 30-day 8-hour pill dispenser that was that $300 and something price tag Sarah referenced earlier. Asking other people can be really helpful. So there's many other people who have tips and advice and different strategies that have worked for them, which might also work for you, or they can be adapted to fit your needs as well. Prompts and aids can help maintain independence if they're combined with preserving dignity and respect. And I think, again, Sarah mentioned that with the signage, it really does need to be appropriate for the person and not just overkill with putting signage on absolutely everything, which might actually make that environment quite overwhelming and overstimulating. And also you can make as many or as few changes as necessary in your home for your circumstances. So thank you, Sarah.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
Rodney has another question.
Rodney's on mute.
If I can, yeah. In one of the pictures before you, it had the living room, and there was lots in that living room. And I know it probably it needs to be to the individual, but can a living room be too full of things which might cause a distraction?
So, Rodney, do you mean too full of changes and signage?
No,
or too full of clutter and possessions?
Well, yeah, I don't like using the word clutter, because someone could take offence to clutter and say, I love all these things. But if there's lots happening in that room, can that work as a benefit or a distraction?
It depends on the person. It really does. Some people function really well with all their possessions on show, you know, photographs of family, trinkets, special things. Other people, it is going to distract, and they may spend time sort of rearranging, which sometimes could be useful, sometimes might not. It depends. It's what suits the individual person in their individual circumstance, and that can change across their journey with dementia.
And I think just to add to that as well, Rodney, I think familiarity comes into it as well, where if somebody's living in their own home, you don't want to gut, you know, main living areas that they've always lived with things everywhere and they know the place for everything that's in that room. You know, we can't just come in and clear it all out and then have a really minimalistic approach if that person has never lived like that. You know, it's not appropriate for that individual. So it all comes back to knowing the person. Yep.
I've simplified, if I can add to that, I've simplified our home over the last couple of years, and it's it's not exactly minimalist, but I've taken away all my, all the knickknacks, all of that sort of stuff. And I find that's already helped. And my husband's not that far down the track yet, but keeping it simple is just more calming for us. And I'm just after what you said, Sarah, I'm wondering whether down the track it may well change, because he is one that likes to move things around, rebox, rehouse, move things around. So simplifying it for us has worked.
Good. Yeah, that's good. Really good. Thanks, Julie.
Yeah. Does anyone else have anything to add or questions to ask on this topic? No? Great. Well, I guess we'll wrap it up there. Thank you very much for coming along. We do have 3 more sessions next week if you're available to tune in. Otherwise, as Sarah said, we're going to record all of them and put them up on the website, so you can always catch up. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you. Bye.